But today's haul, success. We have vinyl records. So first up, this is probably the weirdest thing in my collection at this moment. This is Sgt. Pepper's movie soundtrack from about 1978. And this was a movie soundtrack that was focused on the Beatles as the primary musical writers. It's really weird to listen to. The Bee-Gees are on here, Peter Frampton, Aerosmith, Alice Cooper, Earth, Wind and Fire. Billy Preston's on here. Steve Martin, the comedian, is on this. So is George Burns. Really just weird record. And I'll end up coming back to this at some point to do another video just on this record because it is just so over the top strange. Over the top strange that I had to get it. I've had it probably 5 times before, but I do not currently own a copy. So now I have it, and it's marked as pre-loved. So someone loved this, and I'm gonna love having it again. And I may put this on the turntable as soon as I get home. I think I just had a mild epiphany. I'm working on episode 2 right now, and I'm mixing together some stuff. And I know that I made a comment that the Sgt. Pepper soundtrack is probably the weirdest record that I have. I was wrong. It is not the weirdest record that I have. I have another record that I don't know where it came from, and I will not subject you guys at home to the torture of hearing this, but it's this record. And this record is all of the hit TV show theme songs of the 70s. Except I don't think they're all actually the theme songs. I think some of them are like alternate versions. And I've played it one time and I barely made it through alive. It was horrible. I have no idea where this record came from, but I did not buy it. It's kind of like a ghost. It just showed up at my house and I have no idea how it got here. So with that said, I have another confession. I'm covering some information on an album that's basically a movie soundtrack that's all based on Beatles songs. And I'm going to get really close to tell you guys this. I am not a huge Beatles fan. And my mother is probably going to disown me for saying that. But I'm not. There's only a couple of albums that they did that I actually like. The early bubblegum stuff I don't care for at all. I will listen to the White Album. I own the White Album. I will listen to bits and pieces of Abbey Road, and I will listen to Let It Be. Other than that, I really don't care for the Beatles or any of the stuff that most of the solo releases since the Beatles from the individual members. But I'm going to cover an album with the Beatles. But it doesn't have the Beatles. It has the Bee-Gees. And guess who else I can't stand? I don't like the Bee-Gees. But this record is actually amazing. And it's Beatles songs with the Bee-Gees. I think I need some whiskey now. It's too late for coffee. Let's get on with it. Coffee. Amazingly enough, not even my coffee. This is a roaster in North Carolina from Sparta, North Carolina. And it's not bad. I'm going to enjoy this. And talk about a little bit of the Sgt. Pepper soundtrack. So the first time I saw this movie, I was probably about 8 years old. And the visuals were just ridiculously over the top. The costuming themed specifically after the Sgt. Pepper's look with the military style dress uniforms. Just really visual, huge over the top production. and it's a musical. So if you've never seen the movie, you should at least give it one viewing. I do suggest possibly sipping on a little bit of whiskey first, because it can be a little bit of a hit to the senses if you're not prepared for it. So entirely up to you, but I mean, it's also viewable with no whiskey. You'll see what I'm talking about in a minute when I start going through the actual packaging on this. But the soundtrack, Peter Frampton, Bee-Gees, Earth, Wind and Fire, Steve Martin, Billy Preston, Alice Cooper, George Burns, Aerosmith. George Burns does songs with Peter Frampton and the Bee-Gees. There's like a massive sing-along with the who's who of the 1970s on here, all disco style, but it's listenable. Sandy Farina, Diane Steinberg, Stargard. There's a lot going on with this record. And this is the cover. They kind of themed it after the Beatles, obviously. It was produced by George Martin, with the exception of a couple of songs. Jack Douglas was involved. Maurice White was involved. And it's a gatefold cover. Opens up to this big, massive collage, and that's the back. And it's a very straightforward production, but it is themed after the look of the movie. And once you watch it, you'll realize what the heart is. The heart is present through the whole film. But I definitely suggest giving the film one viewing. It's from 1978, so expect it to look dated. If you can find it on VHS and watch it on an old-style TV, I highly suggest that for the humor factor. Somehow, I don't know exactly what happened, but the first time I saw it, it was on VHS, and I'm assuming that they didn't adjust for the aspect ratio of widescreen to full screen. And what I saw had extremely long stretched heads, and it made it 10 times funnier to watch. I've seen it since on DVD and Blu-ray, and it's nowhere near as humorous on those platforms, I guess because it's the intended viewing experience. But the first time I saw it was on a standard television from the 80s on a VCR through VHS. And everyone's head was really long because something went wrong. I don't know, maybe the version that we rented from the video rental store was intended for a widescreen TV, but that wasn't as common in the early 80s. So in fact, I don't think I know anyone that even had a widescreen TV in the early 80s. So I can only assume that the mastering didn't take into account for the aspect ratio and made a big mess of it. It was a colossal mess. But it's fun to watch because they look like space aliens. And after watching the movie, it kind of makes more sense for them to all be space aliens. Here we go, diving right in. Good close-up shot of the color in the cover. They did some really nice transitioning for this. And I got this for a whopping $6. I don't think I did too bad here. $6 for a used record is not bad at all. Good close-up of the inside of the gatefold. Some pictures of the bands, and I've got a few more coming up where I've kind of stopped and hovered directly over certain shots. I'll go more in detail on. This one is Aerosmith in 1978 or 77, depending on when they filmed. Bee-Gees, Peter Frampton, jamming out, dressed up like the Beatles. Another close-up shot of just the Bee-Gees. George Burns rocking out with a Les Paul and dancing around outside. The trumpet is directly from the film. This is a look at the inner sleeve with the Bee-Gees and Peter Frampton in their costuming and the track listing on the back cover and the production credits. This is what the center labels look like. I'm not going to show all of them, just this one, but this is what the center labels look like. And this is where it gets odd. The order forms are still present in this, and that Mylar poster is ridiculous. I would love to own one. It's just over-the-top reflective, like the 70s. Everything was absolutely ridiculous with some of the merchandising that went out for music. But these order forms are normally long gone by the time they reach a used market, and for these to still be present, even with a little tear on one of the sheets, is just fine. Thanks for taking the time to check out our videos. If you like what we're doing, give the channel a like. If you really like what we're doing, our videos are not monetized, and we have no intent to make them so. Log into concafesc.com and take a look at what we offer for coffee. That's what pays for doing all of these videos, and we have a whole lot more planned for the upcoming future, especially coming up on Record Store Day in April. There's some targets that we're after for that little celebration. So if you don't remember the web address, it's concafesc.com. You can also wait through the end title sequence and see it posted at the very end of this video. And we hope to see you soon with another one.